all set up. Cool. Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the weekly team call. I'm super excited to have a guest on today, a good friend of mine who I've known for a while. Introduce him in just a minute. Two quick things that I want to touch on. The first one is the Ultimate Portion Fix. So last week we talked about Ultimate Portion Fix and it's coming out. I gave you the slideshow with all the information. There's a little bit of a tweak to that because of the tote bag. So a number of people sort of looked at that and said, okay, well, why is it not the same price as the 2B Mindset for the similar pack, right? The one that has Shakeology and BOD included with it. The reason is because it comes with a tote bag. So we asked them, hey, could you just make that optional or take it out? They had trouble somehow programming that, but they're coming out with a special offer that's basically going to offer BOD for $40. So it'll affect our commissions a little bit, but it will make those two things the same price. And they're going to try and work on programming something else on that end. I don't have a whole lot of information because I just found that out about 15 minutes ago. But that's what I got for you there. The second thing I wanted to touch on is I've been doing these daily little updates about this great book from my buddy Keith Callahan called Build to Last. And I totally forgot to mention something yesterday I just wanted to touch on really quickly. Yesterday I talked about, identifying leaders and that leaders have all these little characteristics about them. They're kind of go-getters and they're fun, they're exciting, they're winning challenges. They're competitive. They usually have a lot of stuff going on in their life. They're interesting people. I forgot to mention the second thing about identifying leaders, which is just so true for me, which is that I get excited to work with them. That's how I know when I've got somebody that I really think has a lot of leadership potential is I'm just super excited to work with them. Kylie Ray, for example, who just advanced to Diamond last week, she just booked a call with me today and I was like, she's like, oh, I'm sorry, it's so last minute. And then no way, like I'm excited to talk with her because I've worked with her a little bit and I want to get to know her better and I want to work with her more. And that's how I think I know there's just some intangible there about just being somebody it's exciting to work with. So with all that said, I want to introduce my buddy, Pat Riehlman. Let me just kind of gallery view this thing and it'll probably just kind of, let me make sure I'm not just totally pinned. Boom. So Pat, I was super excited. I got a message from Pat last week, I think, just sort of saying, hey, would you be on my team call? And I said, of course I would. And I'd love to have you on mine as well. And we were able to set this one up super quick. I think it's April 9th. I'm going to be on Pat's call. I've known Pat for a long time, done a lot of cool stuff with Pat. Pat was involved with our men's leadership conference, the Training Camp Live events that Jimmy and I did. Even brought his dad, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Which is something I want you to get into. I want you to talk a little bit about that today and your family. Gosh, Pat also was a part of Bo Easton's mastermind. And so Jimmy and I did, I guess out of probably training camp, Pat got to know Bo, went to Bo's events and started to get into the mastermind. And Jimmy and I were in that program and we had a lot of good times, a lot of fun doing that. Pat's been a coach for 10 years. He's a member of the only club that matters, which is the Million Club.
The Black Ribbon Club.
That's right. That's right. And so I wanted to have Pat on, and I guess I'm just going to have you start with your story and how you got involved with Beachbody. I do want you to talk about your family too, because I just think it's a really unique and very, very cool situation that you have.
Yeah, of course. So I'm from upstate New York. I went to school up there, went to college up there. I was a college athlete. When I went to college, I knew what sport I was going to play, but I was thinking about what major I wanted to pick. And my mom told me I should be an accounting major because I'd be able to get a good job when I got out of school. And I listened to my mom and I was an accounting major. She's an amazing woman. She was teaching me compounding interest when I was like 12 years old. She's a six-figure earner with Beachbody. I think she's gonna be hitting the Million Club here soon. So she was the first coach I ever signed up. But honestly, that was kind of the extent of the thought I put into what I was probably going to do the next 40 years of my life. And so I study really hard. I get a job with PricewaterhouseCoopers out of college in Boston, which is one of the biggest accounting firms. And I start studying for the CPA exam and I passed that. And I'm kind of on this partner path it's kind of like a 14-year plan to make partner at this firm. And I'm like, I got tunnel vision. Like, I'm in tight with the partners. Like, they like me. I like them. Like, it's going pretty well. I'm getting promoted. I'm making a little more money every year. And but at the same time, I'm also like starting to gain weight, and I'm starting to kind of feel a little bit like funky. Like, I'm starting to lose a little bit of that like athlete mindset a little bit. My energy is starting to kind of just not be the same. I gained about 30 pounds that first year and a half after college, sitting behind a desk. And I went from about 180 up to like 210, like 212 at my heaviest. And I kept seeing this infomercial for P90X. And I keep seeing it over and over again. And as an athlete in college, I was just so used to like working out with the team. Like, I'd show up whenever they told me to show up, and I worked out with everyone else, what they were doing. We were pushing each other. And then I'm like going to the gym in my little complex downstairs in my apartment in Boston. And I'm just like trying to figure it out. And I'm like, this is horrible. I don't know what I'm doing. And I keep seeing this infomercial, and it's like this dude that's just basically telling you exactly what to do. Just like I did in college. It was like, just follow this plan. Put in the DVD, push play, follow the plan. And so I bought it after the 10th time I watched it. Finally, I just had to see it enough times that eventually I was like, all right, let's do it. And I bought it, and I just kind of fell in love with it. And my body started changing. I started to feel like an athlete again, but not just physically, but mentally too, which was huge for me. And then two of my college teammates, former college teammates, they were coaches, and they found out I was doing P90X, and they were like all over me, to be a coach. And I'm like, dude, like, I'm going to be a partner at this accounting firm. Like, I'm not going to be, pushing DVDs and supplements and things. And they were pretty cool about it. Like, they just kind of, would tell me a little bit about it, a little bit at a time. And they kind of like would whisper little things to me. And I started watching without telling them anything. I pretended like I wasn't interested, but I started watching a lot closer. And I think that's something that now I look back at and I'm like, people are watching you. You don't think they're watching you. They won't like anything that you're posting. They're not commenting on anything you're posting, but they're watching, just like I was. And so I finally decided, all right, I'm going to sign up and do this thing, because I saw not just the potential, because there's two main ways you earn with this business. One, selling the products. Two, building a team and earning the team bonus. That's what excited me. Selling the products was like any other job. You only get paid for your time, for your effort. Building a team, all of a sudden now you're going to get paid for the efforts of an entire team, which frees you up to earn way more than you ever could in a normal job or business. And I was like, I like that. I like that I can help other people, find other people that want to do this. And Beachbody's going to thank me by paying me a team bonus, not just for my efforts, but the efforts of an entire ripple effect. Not just my coaches either, like my coaches' coaches, my coaches' coaches' coaches. I was like, I need to just start this and see what happens with it. I can do it on the side. So first thing I did when I signed up as a coach, very first day, I got my mom. I had her. I put in a workout with my dad, core synergistics from P90X, the original core synergistics. You didn't need any equipment. We're rolling. If you guys have done P90X, you remember core synergistics. There was like boat, banana, boat, like that one where you're rolling over on the ground. And we're in our tiny apartment. My sisters are there. We're all bumping into each other, rolling around, doing this thing. And they're like, we're all laughing, having a good time. And then as soon as the workout's over, first thing I do is I pull out my computer. I go, Mom, I'm signing you up as a coach. I want your support. I'm starting this business, and I want you to help me. I want you to support me in this. If you want to do it with me, cool, but at least just support me by being my first customer, my first discount coach, I called it. And she was like, okay. And that's kind of how I look at it. Like, if you guys were to open up a restaurant, you would want all of your friends and family to come on your opening night, and they would come. And if you're starting this business, it's no different. They're going to support you because they love you. So that's what I did. I was like, I just want you to support me in this. I want you to be healthier too. Like, this is something that I want you to do with me, but I just want you to support me as your son. Right. And she was like, all right, cool. And then I was going to sign up my dad on my other leg to get to Emerald. And she was like, no, I'm signing up your dad because I want to get to Emerald, because she asked me about it, So I signed up my sister and got to Emerald. And then she signed up my dad and my other sister, and she got to Emerald right away. So we both got to Emerald like within our first 24 hours and started to be kind of eligible for those customer leads and things. And Honestly though, I didn't really treat it like a business after that. It was like, all right, I'm an Emerald. I see the potential, but then I got my busy season came back around with my accounting career and everything. And I kind of put it on the back burner a little bit for a little while, for like a year or so. And once in a while I'd, sell a few things, and I signed like maybe one or two coaches that first year. But I always kind of knew that it was there, and it was something that had huge potential that I was never really going to quit. But I just didn't give it what it deserved until I went to an event, my first event in Boston. There was an event like 10 minutes from my apartment, and Carl Deichler was going to be there, and Christine Dwyer was going to be there. Bob Aceto was there. I think I met Bob there. He was like an Emerald at the time. Keith, I don't think Keith Callahan was even a coach yet. That book you're reading, like, I have that book. I read it. Like, I think my little blurbs in that book, which is cool. But yeah, so I got to meet Mark Briggs, and I got to see these people and talk to them and listen to Carl. And there was like the switch in me that just got flipped. And ever since that first event, I never could turn that switch off, even though I was so committed and had invested so much money and time into my accounting career and into this partner path. I never could really turn that Beachbody switch off. And so I kind of just started to put a little bit more time into it, and it slowly started to grow until I was making, $200, $300 a week with it. Like, it took me kind of, I would say, 4 years to get to that point where I was making $200-$300 a week, which is not great, but I was treating it like a hobby. I wasn't treating it like a business. So it took me a while to get to that point. And then I finally just got burnt out in my career, and I had a relationship end, and I was just in this place where I was like, I can't see myself doing this accounting thing for the rest of my life. I can't see myself doing this. And meanwhile, I'm sitting on something that is like my ticket to opt out of this. It's my ticket to freedom. And I got to meet some of these coaches that had already created that freedom with this business. And what I realized was when I'd sit down with them and have a beer with them or something, like, they weren't rocket scientists. They weren't like superheroes. They were just normal, good people that worked hard. They just showed up and did the work consistently for an extended period of time instead of just doing it when they felt like it, like I did. And so I finally I said to myself, I got 7 months left on my lease. I'm making $300-$400 a week with this thing. I need to get to a point at the end of this 7 months where I can live off of this thing and move out of the city and leave accounting and move somewhere and not have to look for another accounting job and be able to live off of this. And so for 7 months, I just lived on Facebook. Like, this is before Instagram. So I would just go into different Facebook groups, and I would look to see like what people were talking about. And if they're asking questions, I would Google it and answer their question. And then I'd, message them, and constantly was inviting people just to take a look at the products and take a look at the business. Constantly inviting and following up. I started a little private Facebook group of my own. That was just like an accountability group that I would, invite people to be a part of. And you didn't have to buy anything to be in there. Just, they could be in there just as like an accountability thing. And a lot of them were doing Beachbody workouts, but some of them weren't. But then they'd get in there and they'd see other people doing Beachbody workouts, and they'd start asking questions and talking about it. And a lot of times I would just have them sign up with a free account. So I'd be their free coach. And then when they start asking about Beachbody and stuff, I'd tell them about it, and kind of just went from there. It's kind of like an organic field. That 7 month period is really when my family knew that they were either going to come with me or they were going to get left behind. At that, they had been watching me and they kind of had been doing it, but I hadn't been taking it serious, so they didn't take it serious. When they saw me switch that flip where I was like, I'm doing this. This is going to be my like plan A. And for the next 7 months, I'm going all in with this, and you can come with me or you're going to get left behind. They were like, he's not desperate for me anymore. Like, he's going to do this with or without me. And I had some good mentors like Bob Aceto and Keith Callahan that I saw do this, and they just told me one thing. They said, find 5 good leaders. That's it. It was like, find 5 good leaders, and they don't even have to be personally sponsored. If you bring someone in that's kind of half-assing it, but they bring someone in that really wants to do this thing, and you work with them and they become a leader, it might not help your rank or your elite points or your success club points, but volume is freaking volume. and leaders are leaders. And so I just worked with whoever the willing were. And if they were my PS, great. And if they weren't, great. I didn't care. I just need to find 5 good leaders. And my family knew that I was going to do that. They knew that I just knew it in my gut that I was going to find 5 leaders. To me, it was just inevitable, because the only way I wouldn't find them is if I quit. I didn't have a boss that was going to tell me, hey, you're not good enough, you're going too slow, like you're fired or anything like that. Like, no, because I am the boss. You guys are your own boss. The only way you can mess this up is if you quit or if you aren't consistent. And I knew that I just never was going to let that happen. So I knew it was inevitable I'd find those leaders. And I think people started to feel that, and they didn't want to get left behind. So that's when my mom really started to kind of take it more serious. My dad started taking it a little bit more serious. One of my sisters started taking it serious. The other one did not, because she was like 23 at the time and wanted to like have a real job. But that first kind of like 3 or 4 months, we started getting a lot of momentum and started, getting more coaches. And there was just like a palpable feeling of just like this buzz, and people could feel it. And my family was going, and I had a couple coaches that I met through social media and customer lead program that were kind of growing. I built 2 legs. Like, I didn't have a leg built for me. So I had like the one leg was my family, and the other leg was more like social media and customer lead program. And so my family was doing well, like my mom and my dad and my one sister was doing really well. And then they brought some people in that I was working with, and they were starting to get momentum, which got my family even more excited. That's something, again, another huge reason to work with your non-PS coaches. Like, if you work with a coach who's 4 levels down and they get more excited and have more confidence, it's going to ripple up through the entire team. And that's what I did. And that's what happened. And so then I started doing the same thing on my other side. When my coaches would bring in people, I would make time for those non-PS coaches and work with them, which got them more excited, which got my coaches more excited. And now there's momentum on both legs. So I start making some good money. I'm looking towards Summit, which was coming up that year in 2000. This is 2013, was my 7-month like big push. And I set a goal to get like 20 coaches from my downline at Summit. And we hit it. I think we had like 22 or 23 or something like that. And so sometimes people are like, what's like one quick tip to like increase your income? I'm like, if you can get 20 or 25 coaches from your downline to Summit, game on, wildfire. And so that was like a thing that I spent like a weekend at Eric Worre's house. I spent like all this money to go hang out with Eric Worre at his house for the weekend. Jimmy was there. And that was one thing that Eric talked about. He said one of the metrics he looks at is how many coaches in your entire downline are getting to the annual convention. And his formula was like, for every 1 coach you get to that annual convention, you would make about $1,000 that year. So if you get, for me in the beginning, I think it's a little bit more than that. Like for me, it worked out to be, if you got, for every coach from my downline I got to Summit, I ended up making like $3,000 that year. So like the year I got 25 people to Summit, I made $75,000 that year. The next year I got 50 coaches at Summit, I made $150,000 that year. So that was something, that's something I'm always kind of tracking, is how many coaches from the downline are going. But so I'm starting to get momentum. We're getting coaches that are all ready to go to Summit. And I got my younger sister, she's 23. She's like the last link that like is just not wanting to do this thing. And we just happened to both be in Boston. We happened to work in the same building in Boston, different companies, but just happened to be in the same building, which was kind of funny. And I'm sitting outside on a Thursday, payday, right? And it's sunny out. This is probably like right before Summit. It's like May or June. And she comes outside and she's like, what are you doing? I'm just checking my Beachbody paycheck. And she's like, oh, really? How much did you make? And it was the first week that I ever made more with Beachbody than I had with my accounting job. And she was like, what? Like, what do you do again? How does this work? I was like, meet me here tomorrow at lunch. I'll show you what I do. And literally I pulled her like into like a little alley in our building. So I didn't want my coworkers to see, because I was afraid to talk about it at the time, which is so dumb now, like looking back. But in 20 minutes, I just showed her how to find people, how to connect with people, and how to invite, and how to, that was it. And she's gone out now to create a 6-figure income, just like my other sister. She later on was like, I hope this isn't how you train all your coaches, like in a side dark like hallway. Like, this is creepy. But yeah, like at the end of that 7 months, I was making between like 1,500 to like 1,800 a week with Beachbody. And that's when I left my accounting job at the end of 2013 after that like huge push. And I left Boston and I moved to Delray Beach, Florida, on the beach at the end of 2013. And I lived there for 4 years and just continued to grow it, like doubled it the next year, doubled the year after that to like 300 grand a year. I just moved to Austin a year ago, but yeah, there was like that little bit of a slow period there for like 2017, but 2018 was like kind of back, and now 2019 again is like the momentum and everything is like really starting to grow again, which is really cool. But yeah, I just continue like Dave was saying at the beginning of the call, like I'm constantly just looking for those people that excite me to work with. And I don't care if they're a PS coach that I personally recruited in, or if it's someone that I'm leading a team call and I see someone on a team call that I just see something in them. I don't know who they are. I look to see who sponsored them, and I get on a call with them and I work with them. And anytime someone's like, hey, Pat, like, how do you create a 6-figure income with this? Or how do you impact a ton of lives with this business? I tell them, like, I can tell you the answer to that in 2 words: develop leaders. Develop leaders. And I was always told 5, but honestly, if you can find 2 or 3, like that's enough to really get this thing rocking and rolling to the point where you're going to be impacting way more lives than you ever could on your own. And the income's going to come along with that. The hardest part is finding that first really great leader that wants to do this with you. And a lot of times the catch with this business is that they're going to have to watch you for a while. They're kind of sitting back, just like I did with my 2 buddies. They're sitting back and they're asking 2 questions. 1, is this business real? And 2, is this person serious about this? And the only way you can prove that those 2 things are true is by allowing them to watch you work this business seriously and consistently. For a lot of times, they're going to need to watch you for 6 months, a lot of times a year or more. And that's just what I didn't understand in the beginning. Like, I would get really excited after, going to an event or getting on a call like this, and I'd be taking it serious. I'd be talking to people, planting those seeds. And like, I didn't know it at the time, but they were definitely watching, just like I had been watching. They were watching, and they just needed more time for me to prove to them that this was real and that I was going to be successful with or without them. I didn't know that they were watching. And so I'd get discouraged that they weren't saying yes as fast as I wanted. And then I'd take a break. And then all those seeds I planted were kind of a waste. And all those people that were watching me were like, he's not really even doing this anymore. Good thing I didn't join, including my family, like my mom and my sisters. And, they all saw that I wasn't taking it serious. So why would they? So one way that I always teach this to my coaches, because I'm a very visual learner, a lot of my coaches are too, is it's kind of like running up an escalator that's going down. Have you ever done that, Dave? Like run up an escalator that's going down? Like I used to do this as a little kid at the mall with my grandma and my mom, and they'd yell at me. But it was just, to me, it was like fun. It was like, I'm going to run up the down escalator just for the heck of it to see if I can do it. And that is really kind of the first year of this business sometimes is getting on the escalator that's going down, and you're excited, right? You're like, I'm going to invite people. I'm going to connect with people. I'm going to follow up. I'm going to talk to people, and you're excited and you have this energy. But like we said, like people need to kind of watch for a while. So your business doesn't move as fast as you really think it should. Kind of like running up an escalator that's going down. You're kind of running in place a little bit at times, it feels like, but they just are watching. You need to understand that. And that's what coaches do, is like, that's the biggest mistake I made, was I'd be kind of making momentum. I didn't really know it, but I'd be moving kind of up that escalator a little bit. I'd get like halfway up the escalator and I'd start to get momentum. People would start taking notice, but they wouldn't say yes quite yet. And then I would stop. And what happens when you're on an escalator, it's going down and you stop? You go backwards. And that's what I did to myself the first few years of this business. I was stuck on an escalator. I'd get excited. I'd get on. I'd run. I'd be planting seeds, talking, showing up. People would saw what I was doing. And then life would get in the way and I'd stop and then I'd go back. And what's even worse, I'd have a few coaches that were doing it with me at the time, and they'd see me stop too. And they would be on the escalator with me, and then they'd see me going back down the escalator. And they're like, why am I on this escalator if he's not? And then they'd stop and then they'd go backwards. And that's, what I did to myself, and I did that to my coaches, including my family. And I regret that, big time. I just didn't understand that that's the slight edge. That little invisible slight edge is always working for you or against you. And once I kind of understood that, and I kind of got to that place in my life where I was just like, I was about to turn 30, and I was like, I can't do this accounting thing when I'm sitting on something that is really what I want to do. And it's the ticket to what's going to really give me the life I really want. So I finally got back on the escalator. And that time, I think people could tell a difference between the last few times I got on the escalator. They could tell that I was never getting off the escalator, and they were either going to come with me and get to the top of the escalator with me, or they were going to get left at the bottom of the escalator. And that's when everybody kind of started to get back on the escalator with me. And the cool thing about this business, like I talked about at the beginning with the team bonus, is that eventually you can get to the point where you're on an up escalator, and you're not even having to run at times. You could take a break and your business still grows. That's one of the coolest things about this business is, like, now if I'm traveling or if I'm doing something, like, my business is still going to be able to grow because there's leaders that are going to continue to grow the business. When I'm sick or, traveling or spending time with my family or something, like, I'm on the up escalator now, which is really cool. And that's what I needed. I needed to understand that I had to be on the down escalator for a consistent 12 to 24 months to allow other people to get on board with me and allow them to be on the escalator for their 12 months. That was the biggest mistake I made. That was the biggest shift, was that escalator mindset.
I got a couple of questions, if I can.
Yeah.
One of the things, this is not a question, it's a comment, but like reading Pete's book, and I've been going live, every weekday anyway, because I try not to work on the weekends, and talking about the chapters of this and just kind of relating how it's just like a little diary of my career, honestly.
Yeah, it really is.
The more I read it, and the more I also sort of this is just not what people hear. And I'm like very frank with my people. When I think corporate's full of shit, I tell them corporate's full of shit here. This is just, they don't do what we do. They just don't. They're very well intentioned, and I get it, but they do not build this business. They build their own thing, and they're a great support system for us. And I love the way they continue to create new products. But none of those people have ever done what you and I have done. They just haven't. Right. And so I would rather my people hear from somebody like you. And one of the things, every time I have somebody like you on a call like this, who's been around a long time and built longevity, it's called build to last. Okay. It's usually not that remarkable, the story, not to say you're boring or anything like that, but it's just kind of the work. Like, that's just what it is. It's about being consistent.
Yeah. I
sit here and I go, okay, there's a couple of key moments, and I want to kind of rewind a little bit and get into some of those. But on the overall, it's kind of mundane.
It's not sexy.
I went into Facebook and answered questions for people.
An escalator is not sexy. It's like the least sexy thing out there. But it works.
But it works. And that's, I think, important for people because, again, it's just so easy to get dialed into the national call and you see somebody and they've done something just absolutely remarkable, and you're like, wow, I've got to go do that. And what I just want people to take away from this is not really. Okay. Not really. In fact, it's about just consistency and finding those few leaders. And just yesterday, I was going through the chapter on identifying leaders with people. And I brought out the cards. Have you ever heard the card analogy?
No.
This is the way it was always. So Keith talks about it in terms of, you go into a gym and there's all these Dixie cups that are turned upside down. And there's 5 diamonds, like an actual diamond under and his mentor was like, okay, how many cups are you going to turn over? Right. Same guy, Craig Holliday, he described it to me as cards. Like, I pulled the aces first because I did this just yesterday, but I went through this deck yesterday. And I'm going through and it's like 2 and 6, 8. Then I got a queen and I was all excited about that. It took me forever to get to these 2 aces, but they were back to back. They were just right. It was like ace, ace, boom, business, life-changing sort of development in the growth of this business. And it's pretty simple. Like, again, it's like everything in this business, it's simple, just not necessarily easy,
Right.
because I was talking to one of my friends that I went to law school with, and she's a coach, but she's also involved in a marketing business, and she's going for this vice president position. I just wanted to pick my brain about stuff. And I was like, the challenge in our business is that in your business, you have a carrot and a stick. I only have a carrot, right? I can't fire anybody. So that makes it an additional challenge, and it makes it much harder. So let's go back. I have some questions about things. One of the things yesterday that Keith talks about, and I think this is sort of interesting, is that people are primarily motivated by one of two sort of fundamental emotions when they get into this and they build this. It's either inspiration or desperation. Like for me, it was desperation, right? The economy collapsed. My neighbor lost all of his shit. Like this guy, you saw me tell this story. This guy lost all his shit. Matching Denali's, all the jet skis and ATVs that he had in his garage, his house, everything gone. That was not going to happen to me. So it was desperation for me. Talk about that. You said, I found myself in this place. And I want to just cue you into that a little bit. And was it desperation or inspiration or some combination, or what do you think?
I think it was definitely desperation to get out of something that I just couldn't see myself doing, until I was like 60. I just couldn't, I think I was getting promoted and getting more and more responsibility and getting more and more stress. And I just was like, my whole weekend, all I could think about was like the things I had to do like on Monday. Now on my weekends, like I don't think about anything other than like what I'm doing in that moment. But for me, it was a desperation thing that I had to get out of my current situation. I couldn't have to listen to someone else tell me how to live my life. I couldn't have someone tell me when I was allowed to take vacation. I couldn't have someone tell me how much time I was allowed to take off. I couldn't have someone tell me how much time I was allowed to spend with my family. I think like right before that desperation happened, my parents went on like the Success Club trip. I think it was a cruise at the time. And I couldn't go because it was busy season in the accounting world. It was like, because it was in March. So my whole family went. Both of my sisters, like one of them just went as a guest. They weren't really working the business, but like, I think you just had to hit like Success Club, like, I don't know, half the month or something. And like, I think my dad did that because he was talking to all his engineer buddies and sold like 1 million challenge packs to them. But they all went on this cruise, and the 4 of them took a picture with Sean T. And the caption was our new son, Sean. And it was like funny, right? But it was like kind of like the same time, I was like, this fucking sucks. Like I'm sitting in the snow in Boston. It's dark when I go to work. It's dark when I leave work. And they're on a cruise like in the Caribbean. And this is going to be the rest of my life. Like every January, February, March, and April, all my friends and family, I'm going to see them going on trips, wherever they're going, ski trips, or they're going, to somewhere warm. And I'm just not going to be able to go because that's just how the accounting life is. Like, I'm just not going to be able to do that. So to me, like a word that really resonates with me is freedom. And this business gave me freedom. It gave me time freedom. It gave me location freedom. It gave me financial freedom. It gave me a lot of freedom from stress. It just gave me freedom, and I didn't have that freedom. I was kind of like, I felt caged. I felt like I had a caged life. And so that was like, I had this desperation. I was like a zoo animal that had to get out of this zoo. And meanwhile, like I'm a zoo animal that's really a wild animal that like, I don't feel like a zoo animal, but I'm seeing all these other like people that are having this freedom and they're breaking out of the zoo and they're living these unbelievable like free lives. And I'm looking on the other side of the bars, like looking at them being like, I have something that is going to allow me to break out of this caged life and do this. and I just need to freaking like do it. I just need to do it. I just need to be consistent. I just need to find a few good leaders that believe in this as much as I do. And I'll be able to get out of this thing and not have to live the next 30 or 40 years in this cage. So yeah, I think it was like I just didn't feel free. And so for me, it was like that desperation to break out of that cage that I felt I was in.
Yeah. Yesterday I talked about it and I said, I think it's an interesting concept from Keith. And I think right now, because of the state of the economy, right? Like our business sort of is like a mirror to the economy. The economy is good. Our business is more challenging. If the economy takes a dive, our business will get better.
Right.
And it's because desperation is just a much more of a powerful motivator than inspiration is. Yeah. And right now we're dealing with a lot of inspiration people. My experience anyway. We're dealing with a lot of inspiration people.
Yeah.
Which I think is fine. I think it's actually really fun. And a unique challenge. But I also know that when I could key in on those moments with people and get them to see what you just talked about, about like, how do you really feel? And, how do you really look at it and just hit the pause button and go, stop. Fast forward what you're doing right now. Just fast forward 30 years. Is this what you want to do for the next 30 years of your life? It's not what I wanted to do. I was in the same moment, like the desperation of not wanting to lose all my shit. That was the beginning, right? But shortly after that was the realization that that's exactly, this business can actually do that, that I can actually do what I want to do when I want to do it, and I know you travel a ton, so you totally get this. Next question I have. You mentioned that there was a period you're going to go all in. 7 months, all in, pushing hard. Was it 7 months or did it take longer?
Well, I had 7 months left on my lease. Mm-hmm. And and I had like some momentum at the time too, like a little bit. Like at that time, that 7 month when I said, okay, I got 7 months left, I did have – like my mom and my sister on one leg that were kind of like sleeping giants that I just needed to awaken because I was half-assing it, so I needed to get them going. And then on the other leg, I did have like 2 coaches that were also kind of just not really, they were kind of going through the motions like me too. And so I had like some people in place. So I wasn't starting from scratch. But as soon as my demeanor changed, as soon as my energy changed, as soon as I said I'm going all in, and the number of hours I put in like showed that, they started seeing that too because they didn't want to get left behind. And so yeah, in 7 months I went from making like $400 a week to making like $1,500 to $2,000 a week in that 7 month period.
And at that point, it's a snowball.
It snowballed like crazy. Right. And that during that 7 months is when I got 25 people to Summit. So it was January 2013. I was making, $400 a week. And then at the end of like July 2013. So during those first 7 months of 2013 is when I got the 25 people to Summit. It's when T25 and Vanilla Shakeology came out. Mm-hmm. And so the snowball effect coming out of Summit, which was in, I think, June that year, was crazy. Like that getting those 20 or 25 people there and then having the T25 and the Vanilla Shakeology, it just exploded after Summit from there. And we just kind of rode that wave, into, to the end of when my lease ran out and then I left.
Yeah.
But kind of going back to like that January 2013, it was like you were talking about, like that Jim Rohn quote, that pain of discipline was like way less than the pain of the regret had become.
Yeah.
Before that, like the pain of the regret was like, okay, the pain of the regret of not going all in with this thing was like there a little bit, but not enough for me to like just put in the work, that discipline, and be consistent. But then I got to that point where the pain of the regret had just become so freaking strong, because I had been watching other people do this for so many years and have success, and realized that, like you said, like they weren't, superheroes. They're just doing the mundane things. So I knew I could do what they were doing. My belief was there, and my regret was just so freaking strong. I was just like, all right, I got to go. It's time.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, and the reason I ask about that was, obviously I know a lot of people have had a lot of success in this business. And I don't know anybody who has had like life-changing success in this business that hasn't had some period of time where they were in that same thing, where it was like, okay, you know, and Keith even talks about this, and I totally did this as well. He talks about it in his book where he says, you know, there was a period of time where I went to my wife and I was like, I'm not going to be around for a while. You know,
Yeah.
I'm not married, don't have kids, but I did. And I literally did that same thing where I was like, hey, for the next year and a half, I don't know how long, no longer than 2 years, hopefully, I'm just going to not do anything but this. And I'm probably not going to be a great dad during that time period. My kids are really young then. And I'm not going to play golf anymore. And I'm not going to watch TV anymore. I'm just going to go all in with this thing and just shove all these chips in and see what can be created.
Yeah.
And you know, Monica did the same thing. And that was 2010, which was like our top 10 year. And Lee Ratterman's watching the call right now. And Lee was on that trip with us. And it was like, now we really got a snowball going, because it's not just us. It's us and Lee. You know, Lee's actually my upline, interestingly.
Yeah.
Which I always think is funny. Sort of. I love you.
Yeah. I love Lee. Lee's like one of the people that I was watching, you know, like, and I watched you and Monica, and I watched a lot of you guys like do this. And I was like happy for you guys, but it like pissed me off,
Right.
You know, because I was sitting on this thing and I knew I could do it. Like I just knew it. Like I knew I could find a few good leaders that believed in this and wanted to do this with me and wanted to create the same life that I wanted to create. I just wasn't putting in the time, and it really just, that regret was just really eating at me. It was eating at me. Like I just couldn't sit back and watch it any longer.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it was like,
okay, couple of questions from our Facebook group. The first one is actually from Lee. Hey, which is, other than the coaches that are family, where did you meet the other leaders in your organization?
So my top leader on my other leg is a coach I met just playing beach volleyball down in Florida. Like right when I first moved down to Florida, I was I like getting out and about. Like I think social media is a great tool to allow people to watch you and to meet people. But for me, a lot of times, like I meet people in person, and then I friend them on Facebook or Instagram, and then they kind of watch what I'm doing, and that allows me to kind of like show them that this is a real thing, and that you know, I can teach them how to do what I'm doing. So that's my top leader, is someone I just met in person, and you know, started following me, and just kind of I see her like every week, and she'd be like, I could tell she was interested because I would like kind of, you know, drop little seeds here and there and be like, hey, you should try this. Like you should do a challenge group with me, or, you know, this coaching thing or whatever. And, you know, I would just kind of like get on her and her husband about it. And, you know, yeah. So in person, I also have two of my diamond coaches were customer leads, you know, that I just reached out to my customer leads. Instagram, I have like a couple diamonds that I found through Instagram. So I have like a little bit of everything. In person seems to be my strongest coaches, my strongest teams. Mm-hmm. Like I got my one side of my my one leg is really upstate New York, because that's where I'm from and that's where my family's from. So we have, you know, a lot of coaches that are from upstate New York that we built locally. We'd hang out together. We talk to each other. And then my other leg is a lot of South Florida, where I moved. You know, I started like working with them, and we'd go and hang out, and we just, you know, we'd go to hang out, but then naturally we'd start talking about Beachbody. So I'm someone that likes to get out in the community and do a lot of, you know, volunteer work, or join little leagues or communities or Toastmasters and things, and meet people that way. And my sisters are kind of similar too. Like they've used social media, but they build local as well. I think there's a lot of power in building local because you just get to see them and face to face and hang out with them more, and it becomes more real, for them. But I do have, some really successful coaches that, I met through social media too. So it's a little bit of each.
Yeah. I guess what I always tell people is that you have to, and it's so interesting. This question comes from Lee, who is very much like you. Like a lot of her people, they're people she just looked in the eye at some point. And especially a lot of the people.
Yeah, she's got those blue eyes,
I know, right?
That's like her gift, her treat.
Yes,
yeah.
for sure. Right. But you've got to know what your strengths are.
Right.
And capitalize on those. And then it's working on the weaknesses. Right. But right away, like that's what I'm always trying to do with new coaches is I'm just trying to figure out who you are. What are you good at right now? If you're really good at the fitness side of this thing, we're going to focus on that. We're working on the business stuff. If you're really good one-on-one and looking people in the eye and creating that connective tissue with people, we're going to go to work on that. If you are not good at that, but you're really good on social media, let's go to there, right?
Right.
So really understanding your strengths and weaknesses and being able to capitalize on those.
Right.
So another sort of related question is, what is the focus of your business now? Is it on fitness challengers or business or sort of a mesh of those things, or how do you apportion your time?
Honestly, I kind of go. I don't do the business recruiting and the fitness recruiting all the time at the same time. A lot of times, sometimes I go in like waves where like I'm really gung ho on just finding people that want to, come in for the business. And then I'll go through waves where I'm focusing more on bringing people in for challenge groups. And I found that it just kind of depends on what I'm feeling at the time. And I found that both work. Right now I'm on like a big kick to try to prove that men can be really successful with this business. And so challenge groups is kind of something I still run, but when I'm talking to the guys that I'm attracting, because my posts are more about the income opportunity lately in my, Instagram stories and stuff. So that I'm attracting more guys. And so I'm telling them like that the challenge groups are an optional thing and that they just need to get a bunch of people to, drink a shake every day and just get to freaking Emerald. Get to Emerald and then help your people get to Emerald and create an Emerald factory and find those few good people that really believe in this and want to, create an income like you do and want to build this into a business like you do. And, if you use a challenge group, great. If you don't, that's fine too. And if you want to put people into my challenge group, you can. So I would say the answer is like both. I kind of do a little bit of each. Like I kind of lead a little bit with the challenge groups at times, but then other times I'm like, all right, like I'm only attracting people that are interested in the fitness, and yeah, they might turn into business builders, but I think I'm missing some people that might just be interested in the business right now. Mm-hmm. And if I'm only focusing on the challenge groups, I'm missing out on them. So I try to attract both. And I love working with people that have a business mindset. So I've been sharing a lot about creating freedom and not having to like worry about a boss and sharing, what I make and doing it in like a humble way, just like not to brag, but this is like, hey, like this is an opportunity that you can do this too. I'm not some like, superhero that's doing this. Like I can teach you how to do this too. I've taught other people how to do this. This is a real business opportunity if you're willing to put in real work. So I share my income, with the disclaimer in a way that I think people, are interested to really understand how I'm making that kind of money. And even when I first started and I wasn't making a lot of money, I would share, how like other people, their stories, what they were making. So I don't know. I love working with entrepreneurs. I'm not a big working with, challenge groups guy. I don't mind it. I like the challenge groups, but only because I know that I'm going to find coaches out of the challenge groups. I'm always thinking big picture. I'm always thinking like, who are the leaders I can work with? Who are the people I'm going to be excited to work with that have an entrepreneurial spirit like me? That's what fires me up. That's what I get passionate about. So if I'm leading with the challenge group, it's really because that's what I think some people need to fall in love with the products like I did first before they're going to really take the business more serious. But I'm always thinking big picture, which is, finding those leaders.
It's so funny. We say so many of the same things. I don't know if it's just the upbringing or whatever, man. Like we went to the same school, but I do talk about it the same way about letting people fall in love, and figure it out. Like sign up, be a discount coach. We're calling them preferred members now, which has actually been really effective. But
yeah, okay, I like that
thing, right? It's just okay. Get a little closer to the fire and see if you like it or not.
Yeah,
and see if you can fall in love.
Yeah.
I want to ask you a little bit of a follow-up though about okay, so now let's say you've got somebody you see they've got potential. I don't know, maybe two-part question. First, what are you looking for as far as identifying leaders? And two, what do you think is important as you're working with those people and trying to help them grow their business?
Those are good questions.
Right?
And those are questions I need to actually think more about. But what I'm looking for, I'm looking for someone who's not afraid to hear the word no. I'm looking for someone who understands that they're going to have to talk to a lot of people. And so they've had some kind of experience in their life where they're not afraid of someone telling them no. They've done something or had some kind of experience where they're just like, I understand that's part of the process. Not everyone's going to say yes. And if they're not there yet, then I'm going to have to teach them to be okay with that, because that's a huge thing that you're going to have to get good with, is understanding that a no is just a not yet. And a no is just a seed that's been planted. I know you like stories, Dave. So I'll tell a really quick story. When I was 10 years old, there was a magazine subscription contest at school, and I was fifth grade. And so you had to sell 20 magazine subscriptions, and you got to ride in a limo to McDonald's for lunch one day. And I'd never been in a limo, so I was all about it. As soon as the bell rang, I ran out of the school and I just started knocking on doors. And I don't think anyone taught me this. I don't know where it came from, but I just knew that if I knocked on enough doors, I was going to get 20 yeses. And so I'd knock on the door and they'd say no. And I'd knock on the next door and they'd say no. And I just was thank you. And I'd move on. I just kept knocking. And I just did that all day, all night. And I didn't know it at the time, but my mom started calling around the neighborhood trying to figure out where I was, because I didn't tell her I was doing this. She didn't know, I'm 10. And she's calling all my friends, parents. Have you seen Pat? Have you seen Pat? And once in a while they'd be like, yeah, he knocked on our door an hour ago. She's starting to get nervous, because it's dark out at this time. And I come strolling up the driveway at 9:30 at night. It's pitch black out. And she's like, where the heck have you been? And I'm so excited. I hold up a sheet of paper with 20 names of people with their credit card information for the magazine subscription. And so I'm looking for people that just have that. I don't know if that's something you're born with. I really, maybe it is something you're born with, but I think that's something I learned early on, that if you want to be successful, you're going to have to fail a lot. So that's something I'm looking at for, is people that they don't have fear of that. They're willing to put in the work and hear no and get turned down over and over again and plant seeds over and over again and let people watch them for 6 months or 12 months, whatever it takes. They're just not afraid of that. So that's one thing I'm looking for. I'm also looking for people that other people are attracted to, that other people just kind of are drawn to them. They're they're influencers. People like watching what they're up to for whatever reason. They just have something about them that other people kind of are drawn to in a way. So I think that kind of they have this entrepreneurial spirit of this lack of fear. They want to work. And other people are kind of interested in what they're up to. They kind of just have this natural kind of, likability to them.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting. So Craig Holliday would call that DNA, which is determined natural ambition.
Yeah.
Right. And I know exactly, you just know it when you see it. That's just kind of how I talk about it, because people ask me the same question. I'm like, I don't know. I don't have a checklist.
Yeah, it's tough.
I want to see it. How fired up are you to do this thing?
Right.
And are you willing to get comfortable being uncomfortable? Are you willing to go out there and just screw it up, like sometimes that's really what you got to do.
Yeah. And I also look to see how soon into their coaching they start complaining. If they start complaining their first week, it's like, oh boy, this is going to be tough. They can turn it around, but like, ooh, this, it doesn't look good if they're complaining already that, people are, that's, the people that come in with this optimists, they're just like delusionally optimistic. Like, I think I'm delusionally optimistic at times in a way. I'm just like, I know if I knock on enough doors, like I'm going to get 20 people that buy a magazine subscription. Like I'm just like optimistic in that way. And I look for people that have that optimistic, they just know that if they talk to enough people, they're going to find their 2 or 3 leaders that are just like them, that want to do this with them. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's true. It's just, flipping cards.
Yeah. Flipping cards. How many cups are you going to flip before you quit?
Right? You do have to get to that point where you're just talking to enough people, and this business really is about finding leaders. Again, like I just, I love having people like you on the call because it's just, there's just a different philosophy, a little different attitude. It's not always so sexy and exciting. Not that you're not sexy and exciting, but it's not always so sexy and exciting. Often it's just about being consistent and doing the work. And I do think that period of time where you're pushing all the chips in, and you're like, okay, I'm building this thing. And it's something you said that I don't want to let go, and then I'm going to let you go, is that you talked a little bit about the point where people knew that you were going to do it, and they were either going to get on board or not. But you were doing it regardless. That, I think, is where if you want to do this thing, and you want it to be a career, and you want time freedom, and you want all this stuff, that's where you got to get to. You got to get to the point where people are so sure that you're just going to do it with or without them, that they go, I don't want to get left behind here. And I think what happens is a lot of people they're begging people to join their business.
Yeah. I think people are bored out of their minds a lot of times, or frustrated, and they're just looking for something that's like exciting and something that's going to like be fulfilling and give them some passion and like get them be excited to get out of bed in the morning for once, Like, I just think people are so bored. They're just waiting for that. They're waiting for it. I know that I had a lot of people in my life that were waiting for that. And I sat on this for way too long. Yeah. And they just were waiting for me to be like, all right, he's going with or without me, and I'm not going to get left behind. So people start getting on board with it.
Yeah, it's so true. Hey, that's an hour. So thank you. I appreciate it. Been super gracious with your time. Getting a ton of comments, and I'm sure we'll get more comments as people check in and watch the recording of this. If you guys have questions, please, as always, just go ahead and post them in the comments below. I'm in touch with Pat. I know where to find him. So if you have questions, and I'm excited to meet your people and do your call April 9th. And I just appreciate the time. It's good to see you. I'm glad you're happy in Texas.
Yeah, good to see you too, man.
Right on, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Everybody, till next week, we'll see you later.
See you guys.